A mass connected to a spring is probably the simplest example of physical harmonic motion. I have on the key concepts page a picture of a mass connected to a spring that is connected to a rigid wall. And there's the tacit assumption here that there's no friction and this mass is allowed to oscillate in a horizontal fashion. In terms of forces, this is the simplest picture. As an alternative, I have here on the whiteboard a mass that is hanging vertically from a spring. This is easier to do in reality because frictionless surfaces are hard to come by. And so this is, again, much easier to set up. And it turns out the frequency is the same in both cases. The forces are a little bit more complicated here because in this case, this mass will be pulled down by gravity as well as being pulled up by the spring. But the only effect that winds up having is that when it is not oscillating, where the mass hangs in equilibrium has the spring slightly stretched, whereas here the mass would just sit naturally at what is the normal resting equilibrium point for the spring itself. But the formula that I've got several formulas here on the key concept slide. I've got the basic formula is omega is equal to square root of k over m. In other words, it's the square root of the ratio of the spring constant to the amount of mass. Based on that, one can derive formulas for the ordinary frequency and the ordinary period. And since those are related, you might recall that omega is equal to 2 pi f. So if you solve for f by dividing this formula by 2 pi, that's this formula here. And then the period is equal to 1 over f. So if you took the reciprocal of this formula, you wind up getting this formula for the period here. I usually just remember the omega equals square root of k over m formula because it's simple and I don't need to worry about remembering where the 2 pi goes. And then based on the other formulas that we looked at in the first topic that connect these three quantities, I can get to any of these other ones, provided I don't want to Google it or I didn't write it down in my note sheet.